Hey,
Perfect. I think we've got enough and more investors who are joining in and will continue to join in. But let us officially start off with the call. Good evening, investors. First of all, thank you so much for joining us for this absolutely special opportunity in place, which is Okulo Aerospace. Believe it or not, this has been a few months in the making, and I'm very, very glad to say that we can finally open this opportunity on the platform because there's been a lot of back and forth to get this opportunity on the platform itself. So it's a very, very exclusive access that we've been able to kind of bring in place for all investors. We've got the founders on call with us, Pariti and Rishi, which we'll hand over the floor to take us forward with the end-to-end understanding on what the opportunity really means. But like I mentioned, deep tech I think has been a good flavor of the season for the last 6 8 months, right? But there are so many deals that are coming to us and so many deals that we are reaching out to with regards to where we see this segment being in the next 2 5 years and who we consider the winners to be. These are the few companies where we really have in-depth understanding. We've checked in with a good chunk of resources on our disposal to understand which are the segments that we see come up in the next 2 to 3 years, right? And Oculo is a very, very special company, I'd say, that we've been able to provide access towards to our investors because this is a segment that we've not seen a lot of companies come up in. And the few companies that we do have, Oculo seems to be the name that resonates with a good chunk of people we've checked in with, right? And that is something that we look at from a credibility standpoint. And of course, spending a couple months with Parati also helped when we were going through the opportunity in depth, right? But that being said, I'll let Parati and Rishi take the floor and take us through the entire opportunity and value proposition in place and help us understand more about Oculo. Parati, Rishi, over to you.
Mm. Thank you, Amit. Thank you for the brief introduction and the nice words. Happy to be engaged with Venture Catalyst and uh, opening ourselves to a lot more investors interested in this opportunity. Um, Good evening, everyone. My name is Pardi Govindraju, and I'm the founder and CEO of Okulo Aerospace. At Okulo Aerospace, we are bridging the gap between Earth and space and redefining aerial intelligence through the development of long endurance unmanned aerial vehicles or UAVs and through the development of what we call high altitude pseudo satellites, also known as HAPS. So, to begin with, let me take you through a brief journey from pigeons to outer space. Throughout history, we have seen a lot of evolution in the way we communicate and observe aerial information. The first use of any sort of aerial data transfer or communication was the use of pigeons in wartime transfer in wartime. Next, we had the advent of hot air balloons, where humans could carry some sort of imaging sensors and observe from the sky. And in the early 20th century, with the invention of the aircraft, this accelerated very much, where humans could now observe large expanse of land and observe phenomenon from an aerial perspective. And the last major shift in terms of aerial data acquisition and aerial intelligence was with the launch of satellite technology back in the 50s and 60s. Although there has been improvements in different types of sensors, miniaturization of certain payloads and so on, the fundamental type of data that has been acquired and the location from which this can be acquired has largely remained the same. At Okulo Aerospace, we're redefining how we can now do aerial data acquisition. And through the development of what we call high altitude pseudosatellites, we can enable persistent observation of areas of interest for multiple weeks and months. Satellites are a 70-year-old technology which are high cost, expensive, capex intense, and also have high latency. In comparison, we offer a solution that is much more simpler, easy to launch, and much more affordable. They also leave space debris, and the area in which they operate is now become inundated with multiple satellites, where the commoditization of space is already starting to happen. The type of data that you can acquire from that orbit is largely getting commoditized. And in comparison to what we are developing, a satellite is much more expensive, with a pseudo satellite costing only about one fourth in comparison to satellite. So, what is a pseudo satellite? The pseudo satellite is a solar powered unmanned aerial vehicle that flies at an altitude of about 20 kilometers above commercial air traffic and weather patterns. So, it is not affected by any sort of traffic in that layer of the between Earth and space. And what truly defines the pseudo satellite is its ability to fly for multiple weeks and months. The one that we're designing for is capable of flying for multiple months, typically 4 months. And then it can be brought back and serviced and then put back into the sky. So it, for all practical purposes, it is like an aircraft that flies for multiple months and it can be serviced, reused, reconfigured. We are also designing this to be catering to be payload agnostic so that it can cater to multiple customers and multiple use cases. We have interest from both enterprise customers and to a large extent from defense customers as well. The interchangeable payload and the payload agnostic nature leads us to carry multiple payloads and thus capture multiple data streams at the same time so that we can monetize each of this with different sectors. With respect to a satellite, we have one fourth the capital expenditure and life cycle costs. And because of its proximity to Earth, a HAPS typically flies at about 20 kilometers from the Earth's surface. So, whereas a low Earth orbit satellite flies at an altitude of 200 and above. And because of that, we are able to get much better resolution. So, 5 to 7 centimeter resolution as opposed to 30 centimeters with satellites. We are also able to incorporate additional sensors and payloads, which are more affordable compared to a satellite. And one of the major advantages of a pseudo satellite is its ability to be serviced and reused. Once a satellite is launched into orbit, it cannot be serviced. So if any fault happens, if any improvement in technology happens, this cannot be implemented onto a satellite once it's launched into orbit. But that is not the case with a pseudo satellite. You can bring it down, improve. If a new sensor technology becomes available, you can incorporate that. Let's say a new battery technology becomes available, you can incorporate that, and then you launch it back and it starts flying again. So the ability to service, reconfigure, and adapt is a major value proposition and benefit compared to a satellite. So in our quest to develop apps, we realized that we can implement the same technology in smaller systems and we could monetize them for more immediate use cases. So we started developing what we called a low altitude, long endurance unmanned aerial vehicle that is capable of flying up to 8 hours. That project and program has now reached a maturity where we have started commercializing. It is also undergoing certification, and we are on the cusp of receiving certification. We have completed stage one, and we should be completing this entire certification process in about a few weeks' time. Once completed, we'll be the first fixed wing UAV to be certified in the country. And the 8 hour flying time is the longest that's available. There is no other flying object of its size that can fly for 8 hours. We have developed. We also gain interest from the Indian Army, especially border surveillance use cases. And using the similar technology, but with a much larger payload, we are developing a border surveillance UAV for the Indian Army. That is currently going through its second prototype, and we should go to field trials in October 2025. And based on more recent interest, we have accelerated the development of apps. Currently, our team is going through the computational design for apps. And once fundraise is completed, we should be able to get the computational design done in about 3 additional weeks. So, what makes apps possible now? Apps has been demonstrated for more than a decade for very niche defense use cases. But in terms of its availability and access to a lot more use cases, four major things have happened. One is that solar cells have become more efficient and affordable. Battery density and battery cost curves have become more amenable for enterprise use cases. And we also see a miniaturization of avionics and payload sensors, which has made it possible for much more sophisticated sensors to be carried on HAPS platforms. And the fourth most important thing is our ability to and understanding of how to design these solar electric and electric aviation. This was also uh, a part of my PhD research while I was at Purdue, which has been brought in house to Okulo. And this gives us a competitive mode compared to other aviation startups. Apart from the technology reaching an inflection point, we also see that the market has become more amenable to the procurement of apps, both from a defense and enterprise. The Indian defense has been extremely bullish on apps procurement. They released an RFI in April 2025, and we have for the procurement of apps, and we have responded to it by partnering with the defense OEM. I want to highlight that this RFI was released prior to the Operation Sindoor, and after the Pahalgam attacks, the need for such systems and the increasing intensity to procure the systems has only increased. The Indian Ministry of Defense has also announced a 20,000 crore surveillance UAV budget to procure such systems. They've also identified that low Earth orbiting pseudo satellites and long endurance UAVs as two of the 18 critical technologies that they would like to buy from the private industry. Apart from the defense, we also see that enterprise customers in telecom interested in HAPS. The NTT Docomo, a Japanese telecom provider, has recently invested about 100 million in a competing HAPS technology, showing the promise for HAPS customers, uh, telecom customers interested in apps. In fact, India's Bharti Airtel is also part of the HAPS Alliance that is exploring this technology. In the enterprise sector, HAPS basically acts like a telecom tower in the sky. Instead of ground-based telecom towers, you can have a single HAPS tower, and that has almost 50x more coverage than ground-based towers. And apps can also act like a GPS network, but because of its proximity to Earth, 20 kilometers as opposed to 200, it can provide much better positioning accuracy. And with the world turning towards autonomous vehicles being the norm, improved positioning accuracy can lead to a lot more advantages. On the defense side, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance is a need of the hour. And persistent monitoring is actually a better way to solve and rather than going into warfare. As the old adage goes, prevention is always better than cure. Surveillance is better than war. And it acts as the biggest deterrent and prevents any sort of economic losses that might happen if war occurs. And for intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, persistent monitoring is the key challenge that satellites cannot do and low Earth based drones cannot do. We solve that critical problem by having an eye in the sky all the time. We also have garnered interest from satellite analytics companies who want to use HAPS as an additional data stream because it provides a much better resolution. With satellites, you can identify whether a car or a vehicle exists in the image, whereas with HAPS, you can identify the number plate of the car and vehicle. So that is the improvement in resolution that you can currently get with the HAPS system. So, what is the secret sauce that enables us to get to these better performing designs? One of the major ingredients is that our proprietary AI-based engineering design methodology. This has been follow up from my master's and PhD research, and we have taken elements of that and built our own in-house computational design framework that allows for better designs. With this, we are able to reduce the time for development by about one fourth while still getting to more optimum designs. We have computationally analyzed close to several millions of designs before we arrived at the final design. And this is a USP that has been built over the last 5 to 6 years. And this computational engine can be used for the development of future projects as well. We have also innovated on the manufacturing and rapid prototyping space, where once we identify a design, we can get to a flying prototype in a matter of months. We've innovated on the structural design, use of 3D printing materials wherever appropriate to fast track this process so that we de-risk the product development and arrive at the optimum design at a much shorter time. A first example of the use of this methodology was in a low altitude long endurance UAV. We developed it in about 1.5 years, and we were able to show 6 to 8 hours of flight time, whereas the best drone in the market currently could only do about 2 hours. So we almost a 4x improvement of the same form factor and size. When we started displaying this at the start of the year, it has been held under wraps, and we are doing a recent expose in Aero India and other trade shows. We had significant interest from the Indian defense. You would see uh, our defense minister, Sri Rajnath Singh, taking a keen interest in our products. As I alluded to before, electric aviation is not the same as jet engine technology, right? You need a deeper understanding of how to integrate these different systems and how to get the maximum performance for a given set of requirements. We have innovated on the solar electric hybrid layer. We have made the system modular so that different types of sensors and payloads can be fitted in so that the same platform could be used for multiple use cases. And we've also improved the autonomy so that the man in the loop is minimized to a large extent. And these operations can be scaled up to multiple sites and multiple customers. We have also gained a few patents on the intelligent energy management layer on the aerodynamic structure. The two patents that we have been granted are listed here. We also have many in the works, and some of them are kept as trade secrets because we believe it gives us a long-term strategic advantage, while others, which we think could be monetized or should be filed from a defensive perspective, have been filed. So we're building a scalable UAV stack ranging from low altitude long endurance UAVs all the way to high altitude super satellites. Our low altitude UAV Kotem Subi is our first product, capable of flying up to 8 hours and can cover about 300 kilometers in one single flight. So there is no 10 kg, sub 10 kg UAV in the country or drone that can fly for more than 100 kilometers in a single charge. And we have improved that by about 3 times. To highlight why our UAVs make a difference to customer operations, let's imagine this line here to be a pipeline that is 600 kilometers long. And when you want to periodically monitor this pipeline, you need to set up base stations at regular intervals. And the base station distance is determined by how far you can fly. So in the graphic on the top, imagine if a drone can fly for about 50 kilometers, a competing drone. Then for the 600-kilometer pipeline stretch, you need about 12 base stations and another 12 drones. So you have 12 drones and teams of two, so 24 personnel to operate for this use case. In comparison with our UAV, we just need two of our UAVs and 4-member or 6-member teams to serve the use case. So we are providing the same capability with lesser number of UAVs and lesser number of personnel. And the cost, this is the cost saving that we transfer to the customer. And we are targeting use cases where there is a high frequency of aerial data demand, and our technology and superior performance gives us a huge competitive edge, both from a pricing perspective and also from a capability perspective. Our second product is codenamed HighNet, specifically for uh, operations in high mountainous regions. This was also a significant improvement from the current best UAVs in the market, up to 3 hours of endurance and carrying a much higher payload weight of 3 kgs. This is designed to operate at altitudes of 7,500 meters. For comparison, Mount Everest is at 8,848 meters. So we are fairly very close to the highest regions on Earth. And this is funded through the IDEX program, which gives us a pathway for procurement in the defense. So through IDEX, we are designing the UAV specifically to Indian Army's requirements. And once we clear field trials in October 2025, We are guaranteed initial orders worth 3 to 5, 4 million. We have also sized the market for these UAV systems. We have realized that each of the product on its own are multi-billion dollar markets within India itself. I'm sure once we gain a foothold in India, we can then expand to other geographical markets which are lucrative. Uh, for instance, the low altitude long endurance market is about 32,000 crores in India. And as you mentioned, we are only targeting use cases where there's a high frequency of aerial data demand. Mapping, surveying, or use cases that we can also do, but it has become commoditized and we don't have a significant advantage. But in these use cases, the technological supremacy of the product plays a crucial role in the economics, and we have a huge edge. The medium or defense UAV has a market of about 8,000 crores in India based on current estimates. And the HAPS market, we believe, is the largest of them all, which is about 45,000 crores. So in combination, the entire market for these products in India is about 85,000 crores or about $10 billion, which is significant and is a perfect area for us to attain product market fit before we expand to other countries. So not only have we technologically matured the product, we have also started doing customer operations. To date, we have done 6 POCs and 17 projects and about 2,500 hours of testing and customer flight hours. We have got on board some big names like Tata Power and Adani. With Tata Power, we are their only pan-India UAV vendor. We are their one-stop solution for all their aerial monitoring needs. And so far, we have successfully executed 10 projects. With Adani, we have done a paid POC and we are currently in discussions for a full-time contract, and similarly for Godrej Properties. We've also done a few POCs for other customers like Tata Park, Apollo, Volvo, Indian Oil, where we are currently in negotiations with them to understand their requirements and convert them into full-time contracts. This will all further get accelerated once our certification is completed, which is expected to be by next month. Our team spans global experience. I come from an aerospace engineering background. I did my bachelor's in from NIT Trichy and then went on to do my master's and PhD from Purdue University in the US. It is one of the top 5 aerospace engineering schools. I'd been the cradle of astronauts with about 30 astronauts graduating from the program, including Neil Armstrong. So during my stay at Purdue, I worked with various aerospace agencies like NASA, US Air Force, the FAA, which is the regulatory body, on specific projects. And I'm quite familiar with electric aviation and regulatory aspects of building these complex systems. Post my PhD, I worked as a senior research scientist with Raytheon Technologies. I led their aerospace systems division based out of Europe, where we specifically focused on electrification of the Raytheon systems that Raytheon was developing. Our aerospace engineering team also has engineers who are ex-DRDO, NAL, and ex-Rolls-Royce. Combined, we have about 75 to 90 years of aerospace technology experience, specifically to do with drones and unmanned aerial vehicles. We are currently strengthening the team on the sales and business development side, and this fundraise will accelerate that process. We also have a robust advisory committee comprising of Synergia Foundation, which is a leading defense think tank. They have taken an interest in our products and are promoting our products across various military channels. So we have multiple ways of entering the defense. One is through IDEX, where we already have a procurement pathway. Through Synergia Foundation, we have access to some of the higher levels of decision making within the Indian defense. And we are also partnering with defense OEMs who will act as our sales and marketing partners for our different suite of products. On the enterprise side, we have our own BD and sales team that will promote our products with enterprise customers like Tata and other. Dr. Ashwin is also a 3 times founder who's advising us on the electronic and embedded system development, specifically with related to electric aviation. Our products offer an edge and are significantly better than competing technologies in India. Looking at other companies that are developing apps, new space, research, and NAL, our product specs offer much more value from a per kg cap standpoint. So we are designing apps that can carry 25 kg payloads at a much smaller form factor of 150 kg, because at below 150 kg, the certification and regulatory requirements are much less stringent. But getting to 150 kg while carrying 25 kg of useful payload is the hard engineering challenge which we are successfully complete. And looking at the global competition, we are near the state of the art, in fact, exceeding in a few parameters. Alto from Airbus is the pioneer in this space, and we are very close to them in terms of the capability that we can provide currently. And operating from India does provide a cost and operational advantage that we can leverage, and we can definitely sell even to the Western markets after satisfying the need within the Indian market. Our team comprising of previous experience, the proprietary design methodologies, the R&D over the last 5 years, and the first set of products are proof points that we can execute and develop this technology and also commercialize them. Our startup attitude and based out of Bangalore gives us an operational advantage which we want to leverage. And the next step is to accelerate commercial adoption of these technologies. With regards to the fundraise, we are looking at raising 8 to 12 crores, which will enable us to get to certain key product and revenue milestones. With regards to the low altitude, long endurance UAV, the LAIL Enterprise UAV, our goal is to get to 1.5 million ARR in the next 12 months. We have a robust customer pipeline that is worth much more than that, and we believe we should be comfortably converting about 12 or executing about 12 crores worth of revenue contracts over the next year. We also are going to field trials in October of this year. Once we clear those field trials, we were guaranteed initial orders that should be worth 3 to 4 million. And with this fundraise, we should also complete the computational design of apps, which will enable us to get to a stage where we can raise our Series A. After we achieve these milestones, I'm sure we are in a much stronger position to raise our Series A, which should be in about 12 to 15 months from now. So together, let's bridge Earth and space from Bangalore to the world. Thank you.
Perfect. I think that the last line is where this pitches perfectly at a closing end. But I'll quickly just bring up the terms of investment for all investors to see. But yeah, the terms of investment for Okulo is a pre-money floor of 85 crores, a pre-money cap of 115 crores. The total round size, as Parithi mentioned, is anywhere between 8 to 12 crores. As of now, 8 crores is with VCATs committing, 4 crores is subscribed, which is where we are looking for a few other investors to come in to the round. If I'm not wrong, Parithi, we've got Idea Spring joining us in this round, coming in
Yes.
again, who is an existing investor. We have Java also as an existing investor on the cap table. But anyone else who's joined us as of now?
No,
Apart from
just
Idea Spring, okay.
it is
It's
spring
Idea
for now.
Spring and
We
Venture
are in
Catalyst for now,
discussions.
and a few other conversations ongoing. We have, as I mentioned, we have a bite of 4 crores with a minimum check size of 5 lakhs. Investors just wanted to give you a nudge. We already have about 55 odd percent blocked off a little before the deep dive call started, and while we were in the deep dive call, we got a few more pings of confirmation for the investment. But we do also have discount terms. If we raise the next round between 0 to 12 months, we have a 20% discount. 13 to 18 months is 25%. And post 18 months, we convert at the floor valuation, which is 85 crores pre money. The deal is being managed by Priyanshi Parekh and Dhruval Muni. I'm just standing in for this deep dive as of now. But feel free to reach out to me for any queries with regards to Okulo or any other company that we have. But yeah. I'll quickly just start picking up some questions. Investors, please feel free to add in your questions in the Q&A tab. In case you would want to ask Parithi any questions live, we won't be able to take too many live questions, but we're happy to take a few Please do raise your hands. We'll bring you up for a couple questions to have a quick chat with Pariti before we resume uh, to the Q&A tab. But before we start off with the Q&A tab, I have a personal question, Pariti, that I'd, of course, asked you multiple times in person, but would like to ask you publicly as well. How is this different from the drone segment that we have seen kind of bursting out for the last couple years, right? We've seen drones in logistics, we've seen drones in defense, we've seen drones in every segment that we could possibly think of. That being said, how is this different, and is there any real competition that we really need to think of for the next 2 3 5 years that can emerge from this segment?
Yes. This is a common question that gets asked around whenever we pitch. So I'm happy to
Certainly.
answer this. Yeah. So what we saw was, and what do we see as flying objects now are the first generation of uh, drones, right? So the goal is, can you get something to fly? Can you carry something decently big enough, whether it's a sensor or something? And the goal was just to get it flying and operational, right? So, and that market has now become entirely commoditized because all you need is to assemble a few things and get it to fly. And you have people, uh, manpower augmenting drone based technology. But when we are talking about scalability and predictable demand from these use cases, mapping and surveying is not the use case we have to target. Surveillance and these kind of use cases are the ones that are more economically viable. And there, the current drones really cannot perform because of their limited flight time. The engineering and the design know-how doesn't make a difference in the current generation of drones. So you'll have to design these systems, engineer these systems to solve that use case better. And that is where the domain knowledge, understanding our USP and technology moat makes a difference. And it's not very easy for anybody to make any of the systems. I'm not saying it's in nobody can make it. We do have maybe a 3 to 4 year advantage, but we are constantly innovating to make these systems. There's a lot of complexity involved, domain knowledge, understanding, years of aerospace expertise, computational design expertise that we have built in, that makes it very hard for people to replicate. So it's not just about putting solar cells, right? Like I am happy I can give you solar cells and I'm happy to put them on any existing drone. They might get a very small improvement in flight time, but getting the engineering design right, we are able to get a 300, 400% improvement as opposed to someone else just using solar cells. So that engineering design know-how, and we're targeting use cases where there is high frequency of aerial detailment, where the technology makes a difference. It is not about, let's say, operational innovation, business model. Of course, they do make differences in any business, but here the technology makes a superior difference, and then we'll start innovating in other layers of the business.
Makes sense. Absolutely. And investors would just like to give you a nudge. We have a very detailed investment note that is going live on the platform, on the app by 7:38 p.m. today, where you can officially also commit on the app itself. In the meantime, I think Dhruval's dropped a link on the chat box for anyone to confirm participation on our Google form. But as soon as we roll around 7:38, we'll have the deal live on the app as well, where you can actually review the details that we've collated along with Pariti and team for you to give for you to get a complete download on everything Okulo, right? But in the meantime, we have Shikarji who would like to ask a question live. Shikarji, if you can unmute yourself, you can go ahead and ask a question.
Right. Thanks, Anvit. Thanks, Pariti, for the presentation. I have a few questions. One was the continuation of the question with Anvit asked. So the the generic competition of, let's say, drones, satellites, etc. So you one thing you're saying is that your solution does things which they don't do itself. Is that a correct way to put it?
So the high altitude pseudo satellite does things that even satellites cannot do currently. The low altitude UAVs, of course, it is a satellite can. So the key differentiation here is, if you want to persistently observe an area of interest for multiple hours, days, weeks, even a
Yeah.
satellite cannot do because it images and then moves out from that region, right? So you really need a
And you think
concentration.
there are such applications there which are not even being addressed or not addressed effectively? Is that the okay?
Yes.
Got it.
So one such use case would be surveillance, right? Surveillance, you need
Okay, so
persistent
there could
observation.
be some many other, but I'm trying to understand. Okay, and other one is yours cheaper overall in terms of?
Yes, sir. So
Okay.
at scale, one HAPS would cost about $500,000. Currently, without that manufacturing learning curve, ours would cost about 8 crores when we get to the HAPS stage. Whereas this is about one fourth the total cost of a satellite.
And
So
it does the same amount, the payload, whatever, everything is the same, is what you're saying.
yeah, everything is same. The capability is the same. And one major thing is we don't need any launch or ground landing
Cost. Okay,
facility.
so the costs are lower, and but it okay. And you're saying it's there, okay, and it stays there for 4 months, comes back, and then you relaunch it. Is that what it
Relaunch.
is?
Yes.
Okay. So I didn't understand. What's your business model? You're a product company, or a project company, or a service company?
So on the enterprise side, we are service based with the UAV market.
So you're a
So when
service
we
provider. So you do
service
you
provider,
so the capacity utilization is your problem.
yes, yes. On the defense
Okay.
side, it's direct
And
product sales
and
because it
your
is.
economics work at what capacity utilization does your economics work?
No, so we are targeting use cases where on a per project basis we are profitable because the costing is decided by us based on the scope of
So
work
the
that we
cost of
do.
the machine is not very high, is what you're saying.
Yes, and the reason why it is low is because we have to employ very few machines, very few UAVs as compared to
Okay.
additional
Oh. So
competing
once you
drone makers.
produce the UAV, I mean, like even if you use like 50% of the time in a year, you're profitable if you have enough work, is what you're saying.
Yes, in fact, I'll just give you some numbers. For an oil and gas pipeline monitoring use case, the payback period for our UAV is only about 2 months of 12 months of
And
operation.
after that, like you're done. Even if you don't use it, you're made payback, and the rest of it is profit, is what you're saying.
Profits, yes.
And
Okay.
Partik, could
After
you
that.
throw some more light on the IDEX bit? Because I think that is where a good chunk of actual sales would really happen, if I'm not wrong, with the government. Because with the other clients is where we are doing a service-based model. But I think selling of these vehicles is where the defense order comes into play.
Yes, yes. So through IDEX, for those who are not familiar with IDEX program, it's a program where startups work closely with the end user and create a product that meets the end user's requirements right from the design stage onwards. So that when the product is finished, it can be immediately absorbed into the defense forces. So the Indian Army Infantry Division, particularly, is whom we are working with, where they want to deploy our UAV solutions at altitudes of 3,500 meters and above. And currently, there are no operational UAV Indian that works well in those altitudes. The best
So
available,
there you will sell the equipment, and then it's a one-time sale, and they use it, and you provide service afterwards.
yes,
And
one
so,
time
what are
sale.
your
But
margins in such a transaction
so we charge typically 2 to 2.5x of our
of your
bill
cost?
of materials.
So you make
Yeah.
about 70-75%
So
margin, is what you're saying.
yes, on
Okay. When you
overall
do an outright sale of the product,
outright sale, and there might be recurring revenue in terms of AMC and
AMC, etc.
training.
Okay. And this is for your low altitude product,
The medium altitude.
medium altitude product. Okay. And the low
Yes.
altitude product is a purely service model, a project model.
Yes, yes. There are
Got
some thoughts about ruggedizing it for maritime surveillance, but that might be later. But currently, it's mainly targeted toward enterprise.
And your third product, you have yet to develop, and then it has to be commercialized, and the economics for that has to be worked out.
Yes.
And that will be an outright sale, the third product.
As I said, if it's defense, it's always outright sales.
Huh.
But we believe because it essentially acts like a satellite, the data stream is quite valuable on its own. And there are enterprise markets which are all willing to acquire the data
But you're
stream. And
not going to sell it to people who are already in this business of providing data.
yeah, we will not sell them because I think we want to capture that part of the value chain
So
as well.
you want to sell data, not the satellite time.
Yes.
Okay. All
Data,
right.
and
Fine.
as you
Okay.
know, data is the new oil, right?
No,
I
no
mean,
problem.
old oil. I don't
I'm
know.
only right now trying to understand your business model. I'm not making judgment.
Yeah.
I didn't see any financials. What are your forecasted financials? I mean, for the next 2 years. Basically, your revenue for the next 2 years will come from your first two products, right? Not from the satellite, not from the apps product.
Yes, not from the HAPS product. I mean, we
Correct.
have a detailed financial model that goes into this. So our goal is
We've
to
also enabled some financials on the investment note that will go live, and of course, happy to share it across as in when you require it, any detailed insight that you'd want.
No, I'm just trying to understand. I mean, right now, is there any revenue? There is a little bit of revenue.
There's a little bit of revenue. So
Oh,
we have commitments, POs of close to about 60 lakhs from
oh.
a few sites with Tata. Once we clear certification, then we can go into tender contracts for the oil and gas customers, and each tender is worth about typically about 10 to 12 crores.
And that
So
is your low altitude product.
for the low altitude
Okay.
product.
And then
So
the medium altitude is to sell to the defense. Is that the two primary models? I mean, at a very high
yes,
level? Okay.
yes, you're absolutely
And,
right on that. Yes.
and that there is a fairly large amount of opportunities, what you're saying, in both the segments.
Yes, and we're almost, I mean, the enterprise UAV is mature, and it's just a question of
And both these
couple of.
products are proven. They're already available and they're working, etc., etc. They're doing
Yeah,
whatever they're
so
supposed
yeah, the second product is going to field trials in October.
to.
So another 3 months from now, we'll be testing in Uttarakhand, Leh, Ladakh regions.
Great. Yeah, thank you very much. Really appreciate answering all the questions. I mean, I also happen to be from
Thank you so
NIT
much,
Trichy,
Rishi.
but from like 30, 40 years senior to you. But all the best to you.
Okay, good to hear, know about you, sir, and happy to know
Yeah,
about a senior from college. Same
yeah.
moment. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll go back to the Q&A tab that we've not touched as of now. So I'll just bunch questions and give you a quick check-in, right, Parati?
Sure.
We have questions from Krishna ji and Nirav ji, which is predominantly to understand what are the POCs for, who are these clients, and what are we doing for them. Now, specifically, Nirav ji wants to know what is the use case with Volvo, and Krishna ji's question is what have we done in the POCs and what were the results that we've achieved. So you can possibly take us through what we've done in the POC so far and
Hmm.
possibly a few examples of what we've done for individual clients.
Okay. So there are three kinds of use cases we target. One is perimeter monitoring. So these are large industrial estates or solar energy parks, whose perimeter needs to be monitored as frequently as possible, so that we act as a deterrent for any sort of security related intrusions, pilferage, theft, and so on. So the goal is we fly around the perimeter, do live video transmission to their security and control command centers, and then this acts as a deterrent. Right? So to start off with, the goal is to augment their man-based perimeter security options right now, and over time reduce the manpower from its existing to about 40 to 30%. We cannot remove humans from a security perspective, but we can reduce it to the minimum possible, so that the drone-based or UAV-based security acts as the eyes in the sky, and the humans come into the picture when as and when needed, right? So that is the first use case. So this is what we did for Volvo, Tata, Marco Polo, and that is the use case we have done. With oil and gas customers, we do what's called linear asset monitoring. So India has about 45,000 kilometers of oil and gas pipelines running across the length and breadth of the country, and these are typically, each pipeline stretch might range anywhere between 200 kilometers all the way to 3,000, 4,000 kilometers. So we did a POC with IOCL where we showed we could fly for about 40 kilometers with live video transmission. Although our UAV could fly for longer periods of time, they were there and show live video transmission over a distance of 30, 40 kilometers. And we did that with IOCL. So ISL used this data, and they have setting the specs for the tender, and they're planning to release a tender in the next few months. So IOCL, HPCL, and BPCL are in the plans of releasing tenders for what is called right of way of oil and gas pipeline monitoring, and that is a shift from using foot patrol and vehicle patrol to aerial monitoring using UAVs. So that is the use case there. The one with Tata Power is where we are the one-stop aerial monitoring solution. So depending on the site, we do different things. If it is a site where they're still constructing their solar farm, we do construction progress monitoring. So where we go and map their entire area of their solar farm, could be several thousands of acres, every few weeks, and we provide a report on what the stage of construction is. For certain use cases, for certain sites, we go and image their solar farm and tell them this is the current state, this is how the perimeter is, this is if there is any sort of damage to their solar panels, we provide them that insight. So our goal is at whatever phase of operations or construction the solar farm is under, will be their one-stop aerial monitoring solution provider. So that's the, but all of them is done with the same platform. So the
Absolutely.
UAV platform is absolutely the same. We're just changing payloads in a few use cases. Maybe the insights change a little bit depending on the project scope. But the hardware and to a large extent, the software-based solutions also remain the same.
Remains the same.
So while we cater to different customers and different types of use cases, the hardware usage is going to be the same. In that way, we can scale quite easily. And even from a capex recovery standpoint, it's quite easy because we have multiple customers to cater to.
And just a follow-up question on that, that is, any international pilots that we are looking at considering, and what do we see internationally if we do plan to expand? What are the barriers for us to kind of enter certain markets? And do we also plan to do it in the next foreseeable future?
So we have not done any international POCs at this point because we'll have to logistics and the cost associated with it, and we didn't have the bandwidth as a team to cater to that market. Although there has been some interest from the Middle East, specifically for these kind of solutions. So we might explore the Middle East as an option in the next 6 to 12 months, but we don't think we will operationalize within the next 6 to 12 months in any other market other than India, because the Indian market itself is quite big, and unless we scale really dramatically, I don't think international expansion is on our radar for the next
Or
12 months.
required at this point, for that matter?
Yes, yes, that's also true. In case the market gets saturated, hope we get there within the next year. If it gets saturated, definitely. But there has been interest from the Middle East specifically for these kind of solutions, given the geopolitical situations there, and also they do also have these sort of critical assets like oil and gas,
Correct.
refineries, pipelines.
That specific market is a lot bigger. But yeah, consolidating a few questions when I ask this, given that we are also on a time bandwidth, for HAP specifically, what gives us the edge to pull ahead of, say, global competitors that, like you rightly mentioned, uh, given that they have much larger R&D budgets and, of course, larger teams working on it, what gives us
Mhm.
the asymmetric advantage here?
Yes. So apps, luckily, apps is not a question of how much money you can put in and you can get a apps done. Uh, the key thing is the inflection point in terms of aviation has gone from using fuel based to electric only in the last 2 decades. Last decade, to be more precise, you could generalize it to last 2 decades. So around 2005 and later is when this shift started to happen, and our understanding of electric aviation, I think we're on an even keel. Be it the Airbus, be it the Boeings, be it the Lockheed Martins of the world, we are on an even footing, and our understanding is on the same level. In some cases, I believe we are doing much better than them. Our computational methodologies. So when we developed some of these techniques while I was in the US, they were state of the art, still not being adopted by even the biggest let's say aerospace companies, legacy aerospace companies of the world. That's one of the things that Raytheon hired me for was, okay, can we bring some of that methodologies into the way they do design these systems? So the way we are developing apps is, of course, uh, we are behind in terms of the amount of financial muscle we have to put into these programs, but our understanding and our ability to pivot fast and move fast is an advantage. The second is the two patents we have. One is on the intelligent energy management system, which allows us to extract more energy from our energy storage systems, improves the efficiency, improves the lifetime of the batteries. The reason why we are able to do 4 months as opposed to somebody else doing only about 2 months of lifetime is one of the reasons is also this patent. So these are few reasons why we believe we are close to them. Of course, the they do have a head start in terms of having demonstrated them before, but we are not several years behind. Maybe I would say 9 to 12 months behind. If we have the financial muscle to develop a prototype, I think we can showcase that we do have a superior product, if not a state of the art product. Apart from a technology perspective, we do have a tremendous cost arbitrage. These products, if sold in the market, would cost millions of dollars, whereas if we compete because of our cost arbitrage having developed it out of India, we will have a much more competitive solution in terms of price. And when we are in the export market, I think that does play a role. If you're able to provide us similar technology product at a much better price point, I think we do have a good market. We could, I'm sure we will get a good market share.
And talking about the cost arbitrage, right, that you mentioned, Ashokji has a question here. Where do you source your raw materials from? Do you see any risks with the supply chain due to global uncertainty?
Yes, there is definitely a risk with the supply chain because the Indian UAV technology ecosystem is not mature yet. It's getting better, but we have not reached that maturity. So we do source a lot of our subsystems, specifically with the HAPS and let's say the defense UAV, from North American suppliers and European suppliers. So that risk is still there. Luckily, India has good relations with most of these nations. So we don't see any immediate concern in the near term. We have moved all our supply chain away from China for the defense UAVs and HAPS. There is still some supply chain risk with respect to our low altitude UAV, but even that is slowly being moved towards Indian supply chain and to a non-Chinese supply chain. So that there is a risk, but we have de-risked it to a lot extent. Uh, but with North American and European suppliers, we don't see a huge challenge in the future unless something changes geopolitically.
Understood. And do we see any regulatory risk constraints for larger adoption globally? How does our product today comply with cybersecurity compliance in general that we see with individual companies?
So the cybersecurity requirements are still evolving. So we are also in conversations with the regulatory bodies. It's still evolving. We are trying to comply with the current requirements, and as it evolves, we will make, since these are mostly software based changes, these they can be implemented quite easily. Um, However, we are also, from the hardware standpoint, we are making sure that they are compliant with certain cybersecurity protocols, especially with our communication and data transmission devices. So it is still a work in progress in terms of, I wouldn't say we're completely hacker proof or jamming proof. We are still, I mean, I wouldn't say there are any UAV solutions who could say I'm completely jammer proof or hacker proof, right? It's still evolving. But we are cognizant of it and we are working with the regulatory bodies to be compliant with it. Uh, our HAPS and other defense UAV are being designed with global regulatory context in mind. So we are not just designing it from an Indian context, we are designing it with the FAA, the European Aviation and Safety Agency's protocols and certification requirements, so that when we do complete these products, they are approved for operations within India and possibly in other parts of the world. We don't have to go through another certification process for the rest of the world operations. So that way,